Hey guys, Luxker here. At long last, the final part of the Xenoblade 3 monthly update series is here. We are 1 month away from the game's release date, and I still don't have the Xenoblade 3 Special Edition yet. Go figure with Nintendo. This time, we are going to talk about the recent Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Direct, and talk about it more in detail. The recent tweets from the Xenoblade Japanese Twitter account that weren't part of the Direct, and stuff the composers of the series are excited about sharing regarding Xenoblade 3 music. Also, the Direct showed off a variety of new and old enemies, and I will go over each and every one of them. I'm still going with the structure that I made in the previous part, but I'm going to talk more in depth of the music that was shown off at times this month, and what I think about them so far. So the structure this time will be music, locations, enemies, gameplay, and the new characters who got more of a spotlight this time, as well as examine the story more in detail at the end of the video. As usual, there will be spoilers for all of Xenoblade 1 and 2, although it seems to be pretty minor in the grand scheme of things since it's just stuff we already knew about. But it's mostly gameplay and location stuff that is the focus of those spoilers. Unlike the previous part, there's no theories I've come up with that might explain things in Xenoblade 3, or else this video will go on so much longer than it should. Although I was aware of some things that were mentioned if you look closely at some images and gameplay trailers, but I'm not going to talk about them because they were things the Xenoblade Japanese Twitter account didn't mention. It was mostly found by fans who kind of look a little bit more into these things. As for the story stuff shown in the Xenoblade Direct, I will have a separate spoiler section of the bits and pieces of the story that was shown off throughout the trailer as mentioned before. And like last time, I'll let everyone know beforehand when the spoiler section that will take place. Unfortunately, since it took so long to make this video, and that I'm trying to prevent myself to look more further into spoiler territory as well, and try not to theorize things a whole bunch, I'm only going to talk about the story stuff that came from the Direct. I know there was a Volume 6 that talked more about what we've seen in the Direct so far, which gives names to some specific characters, as well as some spoiler-filled tweets from the Xenoblade Japanese Twitter account itself. But I just want to keep to things in the Direct to make things more consistent. Alright? Alright. Also, don't forget to watch the previous 3 parts, as not only did the tweets from this month show stuff that I already talked about in previous parts, but I will be referring to things from those parts in this video. I have them on the screen right now and down in the description. With all that said, let's get started. Oh yeah, I should probably talk about the elephant in the room first.
This is what we're meant to do. To send on the voices of the departed.
The Xenoblade 3 Direct. Despite a lot of backlash on both sides of the Nintendo and Xenoblade fans, one not wanting to Direct in general because it was not what they expected, and the other avoiding the Direct altogether to try to avoid story spoilers. But in general, the Direct was very well done in my opinion. It showed off a lot of the gameplay and what the world of Ionios has to offer. Sure, there was some spoiler stuff talked about throughout the Direct, but it was so nice being able to see this gameplay in English, and be able to discuss with it for you all to see. Also, the sheer raw fact that there's going to be a similar expansion pack to Xenoblade 2 is pretty nuts. I wouldn't even think a separate story would be necessary to complete the whole package, but it worked very well in Xenoblade 2, and I enjoyed what it had to offer. Also, the fact we get to see Shulk's replica Monado EX and Hera's Aegis sword for some reason, very much hinted at the fact that, respectively, they're going to be the heroes to be released alongside with the challenge battles, new outfits and items, and of course, the brand new story. Then Xenoblade 3 is getting amiibo support with the Shulk amiibo, where you can change the look of the sword of the sword fighter class to a Monado. So now, everyone can wield a Monado now! June 9th's tweet discussed what is apparently the main theme to this game, called the Life Sent On. This theme is the somber flute-based melody that Noah and Mio play to fulfill their off-seer duties as they mourn those who've fallen in battle. This was the theme played in the Xenoblade 3 announcement trailer, and boy did it deliver. Flutes seem to bear a great importance to the story, and the use of wind instruments in this piece really hones in the main theme of Xenoblade 3 to a T. This theme actually plays when you explore the Xenoblade 3 Japanese page, which was how people knew what it was before this tweet was even made, and how I was able to use it in my previous video's intro. Yasunori Mitsuda quote retweeted this by saying how it was sort of a difficult song to make, because of how it uses two melodies interwoven together, possibly Noah playing the part of the Kevis Offseer, and Mio playing the Agnes Offseer. He comments that Akio Noguchi, who played some of the wind instruments for Xenoblade 2 soundtrack, was playing the flute, and said how wonderful it sounded. He even got the members from the freaking Tokyo Symphony Orchestra to play the rest of the wind instruments in this piece, which kind of blows my mind a bit. I mean, the Xenoblade series always had a wide range of composers use various groups to make music what it is today, but having an actual orchestra come to do the main theme of a Xenoblade game sounds very noteworthy to me. As many English-speaking Xenoblade fans commented on Mitsuda's post and how blown away they were about the lengths he could make to make the main theme, Mitsuda thanks everyone in English and asks us to look forward to Xenoblade 3, and he really thinks it is a great story. I really do hope so, Mitsuda. You've done so much for the entire series, and more beyond that, like creating an actual live concert for Xenogears' 20th anniversary, as well as playing a big role as to why Xeno music is so iconic in general. Thank you, Mitsuda-san. Now let's go on to the next song, called The Weight of Life. The theme that played in the release date trailer, and probably the song fans called Engage the Counterattack, which is for good reason. It's a song that starts out calm, but swings into becoming a tense and energetic tempo. It's a song that expresses the emotions of Noah and the rest of the gang as they fight through the world of Xenoblade 3. Perhaps played at the end of a very important boss fight, when the gang is battling the enemy while talking through it all, while something dramatic happens in the middle, like a character dying, or a risk the characters are willing to pay for. It's a good song so far, but I would rather want to hear the full version in context. The version that plays in the tweet just doesn't do much for me yet. Lastly, we finally got a battle theme. The theme that plays while battling enemies in Kevis territory. And man, those flutes go. Just as the tweet says, the flute signals the battle, and it hits hard. The battle music from Future Connected had so much inspiration taken from it, because this song is mainly just wind instruments, and man does it sound good if not better than Future Connected Battles music. This is probably the best song we've heard so far, and it's a huge relief to finally hear this song after hearing it in so many gameplay trailers. If this song is this great, then I can't wait to hear more battle themes once I get my hands on the game. Let's start off with the World of Ionios trailer Nintendo showed off on their Twitter account. It shows a bunch of landscape shots of locations we already knew about, but there is one small location detail that is found within the Aegis Wilderness, and that's the Agnes colony located here. We can even see some campsites just outside of where the Agnes Feranis is. Fans thought this could be Colony Gamma, which we'll get to later, or Colony Lambda, of which Kamaravi is the leader of. Also, the trailer shows some slight hints from stuff found in Xenoblade Chronicles X. The mechanical rings coming out of the ground remind me of the landscapes from X. I won't get too much into it because I feel like it would take a bit long to explain, but there's a theory that talks about how Ionios is a pre-Miro-like world. With how open and large the landscapes are, and the parallels that can be drawn within, I would love for it to be the case, as it could possibly lead to the next game in the series being Xenoblade X, which Nintendo, I would love to have a Switch port right about now. Otherwise, I love the way this trailer was presented, how the camera moves around in locations and shows you some things in the background you wouldn't expect. And I can't wait to explore every nook and cranny of this world. For the Xenoblade 3 Direct, we got a few English names of some of the new locations. In Aegis Wilderness, there's Zem's Crossway, Meadow Arch, and Wall of the Great Hand. In Milik Meadows, there's Luca's Ayat, Wraith's Void, and the Gogol's Tree found in the higher areas. As well as learn more about new areas that we haven't heard from yet. The Great Sword's base is pretty interesting, because of it being a very barren landscape, and possibly where Sword March is located. The Capricorn Peak is a snow-filled region that has a lot of similarities to Tantal and Valak Mountain from the previous games. The only location we know so far is Zhang Road. Rabby Flats, it looks very similar to Milik Meadows. And the only location we know so far there is Sparus Bar. Ryball Tableland is an area in between Aegis Wilderness and the Milik Meadow areas. The locations are Celis Terrace and Forerunner's Tower. Allice Highway is where the giant Meccana's Finger is located at. Its only location is Zane's Talon. The old Cliffside Way is part of the locations contained within Maktha Wildwood, and is basically where the old Mortha buildings came from. The only location we know so far is called Vista of Ronar. The Syra Hovering Reefs is a location that is found within the skies. We don't really know how to get there, but it has a strange city in the middle of it. Melness Shoulder is an area where Colony Gamma is placed on. It seems to be pretty close to Aegis Wilderness, judging by the landscape. Contrastingly, Yazana Plains is the location of Colony 9, and the landscape is similar to Milik Meadows. The Orion Tunnels seems to be where the old Orion Titan that has been long decayed is located at, and its only location is the ruins of Cebu. Dana Desert, which makes a huge reappearance from Torna of the Golden Country, as it's a major location from that game. The only locations we know so far are called Dogus Quicksands and the Apex Wing. And then we have freaking Arathea Sea! Which seems to be the location of where all that water and sand area is that we saw from previous trailers. And wow, this place is gonna look freaking gorgeous. One of the locations we know so far from it is called Daedal Isle. We also get to know more about the English region names thanks to the fast travel screen, although we only know about the Fornus region, which houses Aegis Wilderness. Man, there are way more areas in this game than I originally thought. I believe since the locations are all based in these main regions, it seems that there is a lot more exploration to be found here, and knowing things like Eris Sea and Letheria combining into each other, as well as the Dana Desert from Torna of the Golden Country making a return here, it's not only going to be a treat for old fans to come back to explore these areas once again, but exploration is just going to be fun in general for everyone. The Direct showed us a lot of new enemies, and returning enemies from previous games. It is such a great thing to have a variety of enemies in here, and new to this game as well. Buckle up everyone, because this is going to be a bit of a long one, as we're going to go through each new enemy that has been new and old, one by one. For the normal enemies, we have Aligos from Xenoblade 2 make a return, coming into the Great Cot Falls. Ansels also appear in Dana Desert and the LAS Highway as well, but also make a few appearances here and there in Aegis Wilderness. Broggs in the Great Cot Falls fighting over a poor lone Aligo are shown off in the World of Ionios trailer at the end. Serprons make a reappearance from Xenoblade 2 and are found in this forest area that we don't know what the name of it is called. Bullets make a reappearance in this rocky cliffside area, but we also don't know what the name of it is called. Wisps make a return, and they appear at the Great Sword's base. Ares and Oris appear at the Capricorn Peak, Hoxes appear in Dana Desert, a new type of fish enemy in Arathea Sea that actually changes to a different one depending on the time of day. Crustips appear in Dana Desert, some kind of golden looking enemy in the old Cliffside Way. Marins make a return from Xenoblade 2, and they appear in Dana Desert. We finally get to see a regular Gogol after seeing two big monks so far. Bulgus make an appearance in the Syra Hovering Reefs. The new water dragon enemies that we've seen in Arathea Sea all this time are called Murfreys. Glance and Flyers also appear in Arathea Sea. Auxilius are Kevis artillery units that appear in Syra hovering reefs, which come from auxiliary, meaning that they're probably some helper units for a much bigger unit that we don't really know much about. Echidnos also make an appearance in Syra hovering reefs. The new enemy type that lives in the water in the Great Cod Falls is called an Ammoni. And just look at that derpy face it's got. It's so cute though. Ignas make a reappearance and are probably going to be just as annoying to deal with in groups for sure. The new enemies with the ether crystals growing around it that we saw in the previous monthly update are revealed to be called Darbus. Arachnos make a reappearance in this web-looking foresty area. Testudos are more Agnes military weapons that can be fought at later areas of Xenoblade 3. Their name comes from the Latin word for tortoise, which could imply it being very slow and tanky. We've already seen Agnes and Kevis soldiers fighting in multiple gameplay segments, but we also see the artillery of both fighting each other as well, and can probably intrude into their battle and fight them whenever we please. Rhinons appear in Aegis Wilderness. Sagittarius are Kevis artillery. Just like their name implies, it looks like some sort of centaur-like unit with it being a quadruped. Centaurus is also a Kevis artillery unit, which its name also is based off of the centaur. Now let's get into the unique monsters we know so far. There is some kind of level 42 robot thing in the Great Sword's base, but the fog in the background makes it really hard to tell what kind of enemy it is. My guess is it's either a Kevis or an Agnes artillery unit, but it can also be something else entirely. Territorial Rotbar makes its closest appearance yet in the World of Ionios trailer. And it's only a matter of time before we get a gameplay clip of the gang actually fighting the monk! And then we have a movable Gonzalez appearing at level 88 instead of the typical level 90 that's usually at Goal's Tree. A Blambus unique monster called Demonic Granular at level 75 at Arithia Sea. An Elk unique monster called Timbercorn Xenos at level 61 at Captocorn Peak. Sensitive Catalyst is an Agnes artillery unit unique monster at level 26. An Arden unique monster called Perspicacious Oldar at level 20 at Aegis Wilderness. A new type of dog enemy with a horn on its head called Wicked Wolf Aranqui, a level 70 unique monster. A freaking super boss called Peril Wing Ryoho at level 100 at Melnash Shoulder. For boss enemies, the Mysterious Raider appears in MAKE the Wildwood. And mysterious it is indeed, because it's a Kevis artillery unit, but it's called a Raider for some reason. So it might not just be an artillery unit, but it can just be a soldier inside a Mechon looking costume. Is that all of them? Wow, that's a good long list of enemies here. Some enemies have interesting histories to why they're named this way, while also going to see more unique monsters. And, well, more monk! I can't wait to see how all of them do against Noah and the gang. There is so much gameplay to go over that was from the Direct. In fact, the Direct not only impressed me on how much gameplay was shown, but some things improved on gameplay from previous games. Let's get the self-explanatory stuff out of the way. Firstly is the gem crafting in this game, helmed by our good old buddy Riku. The way you make gems in this game is different than how it was portrayed in Xenoblade 1. It is more akin to Xenoblade X's gem craft system. Heh, another parallel there. In which you need materials that you would find like monster drops and ether cylinders. And if you want to bypass this requirement, you can use Nopon coins, which you can get by meeting certain conditions in battle. I think this is awesome how gem crafting no longer feels like a liability, where you have to make a choice to mitigate grinding for an item, only to make one gem. It's a nice change overall. One small thing is the return of auto attack canceling that helps you build up the party gauge in battle. The Direct finally gives us English names for the arts we have known about from various Japanese screenshots and gameplay trailers. For the Heavy Guard, Heavy Charge is called Bull Rush, and Upper Slash is called Uppercut Slash. We see that the Crusher class is actually just called an Ogre in the English version. There's gotta be a lot of Shrek memes coming from that for sure. The Tactician's arts we finally got an English name for. Tetsu style, which I originally called in my previous update, is called Stormy Skies, which actually makes a lot more sense with the type of kanji that was used in Japanese text. Foggy Shadow, which I call in the previous monthly update, is called Hazy Figure, and his talent art is called Tidal Wave, and not 500 Waves, which I said in the previous monthly update. Some new arts that we learned this month are Remain Force, a ranged launch attack, and Wasp, a physical art that also acts as a recovery. A weird art for sure. In the Direct, we've seen a few new arts as well. Variable Turret, an art that blocks attacks when it is used. Mighty Beat, which is an AOE high aggro smash attack. So many things this can do. Multi-Blast, an ether attack that heals when it hits the enemy. Way Home, which is a very interesting art indeed. This brings up the new combo finisher for Xenoblade 1 combo, and it's called Burst, which kind of resembles Launch a bit. But instead of the enemy spinning in the air, the enemy swings in the air like crazy. For the hero arts, we start with the talent art of a Guardian Commander, called Deflector Field. This is a tank class move that absorbs the damage you take and gives you an aura called Awaken, which powers up the class's normal arts. First up is Imperial Sword, an art that boosts damage when the Awaken aura is active, Shield Bash, which inflicts topple on break, and Falcon Swoop, an AoE attack that increases damage with the Awaken aura. Now let's get to the actual gameplay sections that we kind of already knew about, or that I was surprised to learn. We finally got confirmation about cooldown gauges, and that Kevis classes use a time-based system from 1, and Agnes classes have gauges that can accumulate from auto attacks. I don't know why it took so long for the Twitter account to show this, because we knew about it for so long, and 1 and 2 fans were fighting over if this battle system was going to be good or not. I really do hope there's reasoning why this is, besides the two countries harkening back in their respective games' battle system. Because I don't want the battle system to be as intuitive as the previous games where the battle system is just too slow, or it's hard to learn to make it fun. I just want it to be streamlined for both casual and hardcore players, but not have stuff that would put people off just from the battle system alone. But my next point would sort of remedy this a bit. One of the more interesting things from the Direct is that we got a good look at the tactics menu, which is defaulted to any combo, but you can change the tactics to focus attacks, fusion first, and follow a leader. And at long last I can finally talk about this! We finally can swap characters mid-battle by pressing the L and R buttons in the tactics menu. And there's no cooldown to this either. You can go right to the next character on the list on the left and be done with it. And you can use another character while the previous character is going through their art cooldowns, which very much helps with the battle system right now, so you aren't just auto-attacking all the time with just one character. Next, we finally got to see what menus look like in Xenoblade 3, starting with the arts menu. Here we can see Noah's Sword Fighter class, and it comes with 5 arts. The first 4 we already know about, but Shadow Eye is an art that we didn't really know much about before, and now it's being showed off in the art menus. Shadow Eye behaves similarly to how it works in Xenoblade 1, where it lowers aggro but buffs your attack stat. A very nice move to have for sword fighters. Over on the left is the character stats, which is pretty self-explanatory for veterans of Xenoblade 2. You have HP, attack, healing power, dexterity, agility, critical rate, block rate, physical defense, and ether defense. Over on the right, it shows you the stats of an art, which includes what rank you can upgrade your arts at, the type of art, area of effect, the power multiplier, the recharge gauge, which can be a cooldown timer, or auto attacks to fill up the art gauge, if it produces a buff or debuff, and the reaction of the art. Another menu you can access shows you the master arts of each character, which are what the arts called that you can access from the left side in battles. Master arts can be learned when you use a different class for a long period of time, until you master the class. And you can use those master arts on another class you choose to learn more of. Otherwise, there's not much to go over besides the fact you can add more master arts depending on what level a party member is at. You can unlock your second slot at level 20 and your third slot at level 40, but what's weird is this clip shows that no one has all 3 art slots filled out, but he's at level 22. This might be for debugging purposes though. However, what comes next is something I didn't even expect coming. You can actually combine master arts and regular arts, and use them at the same time to get both effects at once. This is known as fusion arts, and using it uses the animation of the first art, but uses both effects of the regular and master art. For instance, in this clip, Noah uses Air Slash, which gives you bonus damage after canceling, and Wasp's recovery effect comes after using it. Fusion arts seem to be very useful, and could come into play in tough fights where you need to have 2 effects go off at the same time. It provides a variety of customization with your arts, with a lot of possibilities to do more battle opportunities. Hopefully fusion arts will change the dynamics of the battle system, as so far just from the class having different cooldown timers, it just makes things a bit more tedious. The Direct gave us an even better look at what Ouroboros can do. I didn't talk about them much in the last monthly update, because we really didn't know much about them besides being a stronger form the playable characters can take. Now we know so much about their mechanic on top of all the awesome gameplay bits we've seen so far. The Direct highlighted more Ouroboros forms the party members can take. This time, it's with the Agnes characters. Mio's Ouroboros looks a lot like Cosmos, which kind of complements Noah's Ouroboros form, which looks a lot like Weltall. Sena and Tyan's Ouroboros forms get highlighted as well, which you can switch to while in a Kebis Ouroboros form. Also modify the arts, and perform various strategies around that. The narrator highlights why you must use the Ouroboros forms quickly before their time has run out, which are highlighted by the bars under the character portraits. So it's important to strategize what you need to do before going into this form. The Ouroboros also has the skill links to strengthen up various abilities. You can also use this new points system called Soul Points for, which is a perfect name to give to a form representing the soul of the world. We get to see a good look at what the Ouroboros arts are, and more info on what they do now that we get to know all the Ouroboros forms for the rest of the characters. Some art bonus effects involve having the interlink menu to be at a certain level. I don't know how to increase this level, but my guess is from reaching a certain amount of damage, you can quickly level up an interlink all to achieve these certain bonus effects. Just keep that in mind when we go through all these arts. The segments around the interlink button could represent the amount you need to level up the interlink, so I'm thinking that it's indeed based on the damage dealt that fills up those segments. And judging by the level you are at, a player's Ouroboros can level up to at least 1, to gradually increase up to level 3 as the story progresses. To start, Noah's Ouroboros arts are called Phantom Slash, which can break all enemies during a level 3 interlink, Dragon Tail, which is an AOE that inflicts attack down, which is very nice for not taking damage so often, and Unison Strike, an art with a high critical rate, making it really good for gaining more of the chain attack gauge. The talent art is called Mega Spinning Edge, an art that has AOE and pierce damage, which can go right through enemy defenses, just like that. Uni's Ouroboros arts include Lightning Arrow, an unblockable move that deals knockback. The unblockable part seems to be based on a percentage amount of the damage, rather than the full amount of damage on an enemy. Typhoon Field is an AoE attack that heals within an area. Raptor Raid is also an AoE attack that inflicts accuracy down, and boosts their own evasion. The talent art is called Sacred Cannon, which is another AoE attack that is unblockable, and increases damage against Mobius type enemies. That variety we'll get to in the spoiler section. Lance's Ouroboros arts include Ray of Punishment, an AoE attack that increases the damage you deal when an enemy aggroes the Ouroboros. Sudden Impact, which inflicts topple on all enemies when you are at a level 3 interlink. Burning Rain is an AoE attack that increases aggro. And the talent art is Winning Rush, which inflicts pierce and also puts the enemy into a break topple launch combo just with one easy talent art, which I feel is incredibly useful that only one Ouroboros form can just do a combo like that without much help whatsoever. And the last one we get to know the arts of is Sena's Ouroboros arts, One of them is called Earth Crusher, an art that launches all enemies when you reach a level 3 Interlink. Mortal Bullet, which inflicts knockback and can annul a reaction, which stops an enemy from performing an art. Dino Upper is an art that inflicts blowdown. And the talent art is called Hammer Revolution, which does AOE, pierces, and blowdown. Unfortunately, Senna gets the short end of the stick because her arts really aren't great compared to how broken the other characters have. But in general, all these arts are super broken, and seem to be one of the best ways to deal a lot of damage within 30 seconds to a minute in battle. Ouroboros forms can also participate in chain attacks. Speaking of which, lastly, chain attacks get shown off once again in a tweet. However, we still haven't got more information on them. Just that it says that when you charge the new chain attack gauge enough, you can perform a chain attack, just like that. We don't know what this TP system works and how it affects the chain attack's power. We do know that the start of a chain attack is based on the character you choose that initiates the start of a chain order. Starting with Landseer and his Tyrant Wave, his completion bonus is to increase defender aggro by 35%, and grants attack up to all allies. Noah's Brave Assault has a 70% chance that the attack will null guard. Senna's Bombshell Blitz completion bonus is that attacks during a chain attack gain 90% chance to be unblockable. And we don't know what Pinion Primate is for Uni. However, Mio's Ouroboros form's chain attack finisher is called Death of 1000 Cuts. The completion bonuses increase the damage ratio, and reduces attacker and healer aggro. I kind of wish we knew more about chain attacks rather than what we know from the starting bonus effect, and not just have people theorize what can be do though. I just want to know what TP really does, besides just being helpful in chain attacks. Some small miscellaneous things I noticed are that there being a red chain that comes up over Interlink at certain times, meaning you can't switch to an Ouroboros form with that chain up. I wonder if there's going to be a status condition that it blocks interlinking, or it being permanently locked in challenge battles. The fact there's a menu to change the time of day like in previous Xenoblade games is a really nice touch too. Being able to add a navigation feature called Quest Routes, so not only will you have the quest labeled as active, but you can follow a red line on the ground towards the destination without feeling like you're lost or anything, which is an excellent quality of life improvement. The Infinity Chart from Xenoblade 1 is back, and it seems to have a lot of NPCs scattered all around it. You can search for giant chests in the overworld and receive items from them. You can shop for equipment. We finally have the menu for cooking options, and learning more about side quests at campsites are all stuff that came from the Direct, and I found them to be nice to know as well. And last but certainly not least, we get the characters. And we got quite a few details on some of the hero characters that were shown off in the announcement trailer, the new hero characters that were shown off during the Direct, as well as knowing more about some of those 6 main characters. Let's start out with the information that came from Xenoblade Japan's tweets, then talk about the hero characters in depth that were shown off from the Direct. For Noah, we see an arc shot of him playing the flute in the location of the first trailer. We kind of already know some of his details that were in the tweet, but it's nice seeing the first shot we saw in the first trailer get a nice angle. For Mio, we get to know more about her origins and her hobby. She comes from a new colony called Colony Gamma, and she can apparently run 100 meters in 7 seconds? Yeah, Usain Bolt would like to have a word with you there, Mio. Her hobby is making sure she doesn't miss a day in her diary, which helps her keep track of how many days she has left as shown in the release date trailer. It's interesting how diligent Mio is with the diary, because Xenoblade 2 had the same exact thing where blades like Jin and Brigid would write it in their diary to preserve their memories in case their driver dies. It's basically taking the theme of memory preservation and restoration and revolving it around Mio, who actively writes in her diary, unlike Jin and Brigid, who write in a diary on certain occasions where they need to remind themselves of something. Going on to Lance, he is a bodybuilder, but isn't very great at academics, as well as being reliable and protecting his friends, almost as if the Ryan stereotype is still prevalent with him. I still don't really care much for him though, but this cutscene showing him pick up a boulder twice his size, all to dunk on Riku, is sort of hilarious. But what's interesting is the technology that was made by Shulk just doesn't power up everyone's weapons. But the way how the technology sparks during when Lance picks up a boulder could mean it's a source of Lance's strength as well. And without the technology, he's pretty much a wimp. It's interesting though how the camera paid special attention to this part, as Keva's technology seems to be the main focus of the development of Lance in particular. Next up is Senna, who we know is assigned to Colony Gamma like where Mio came from. We already know she's a bodybuilder like Lance, but I find it funny she flexes her supposed noodle arms after saying that. Otherwise, her Ogre class actually builds up a bunch of aggro because of its high attack power, which annuls guard like we saw from her maximum voltage art. Then there's Uni, which the new information we kind of already knew about besides her hobby, which is collecting 4-leaf clovers. We jokes aside, she is still a fun character regardless of there being little information on her. Finally, we have Taion, which actually, we know a significant detail about him. That's his ability to show people the terrain by having everyone press against their respective country's eye. He can analyze terrain and show them the best route to go through to reach Sword March. In the cutscene, he shows that the group needs to progress through Agnes-controlled territory, which has troops deployed at their colony, but it's the fastest route to Sword March, so the gang decides to go there anyway. If this ability resembles Abrona's ability to see all the Titans at once, I wouldn't see how the AHOY's connections are very similar. Alright, that's a lot more than what I expected, so let's talk about the heroes we get to know more about. I forgot to mention in the last video, but Riku in Manana's class is an attacker class called Yumsmith, which is very fitting and a funny name. I'm so glad that it didn't get localized into something worse. Also, Riku's English voice is perhaps one of the strangest voices I've heard coming from Nappan's mouth in a long time.
Now we see real Nappon potential. This is bad, Noah, but not for two.
Now that the funny Nappan bit has been said, let's start with our kid hero, Valdi, which is classified as a war medic among the healing class. He's a Kevis mechanic who develops and repairs weapons, like Riku's role, but to a lesser extent because he's a kid who isn't fit to work on the Furanis if he tried. But he loves machinery, and even can command a whole army of Kevis artillery units, and even give them a name. From the screenshot, we can see the artillery resembles face units pretty heavily, although I don't think it has people inside of them. That would honestly be a bit morbid with a kid controlling his own kind. Although, what if there was and Valdi doesn't know that? Another screenshot shows Valdi's tattoo more closely, which is half gone, so it probably means he joined the war from a very young age like Mio, all because of his love of machinery. We also see a screenshot of his left eye having an Ouroboros symbol in it, but unlike Ethel where it glows red, it glows similarly to the rest of the gang. I don't exactly know why this is yet, but hopefully it's something helpful rather than harmful. In the cutscene clip, it shows Valdi going on to attack the group for being an Ouroboros, but freaking Manana of all Nappan comes in and scolds at him. And he just stops attacking? Okay then. Overall, we only know very little about Valdi from these tweets, but I think that's intentional. We'll get to know more about him as we play the game, but he's a pretty good Machina boy alright. Next up is Zeon. Classified as a Guardian Commander among the Defender class, Zeon protects his allies above and beyond with a sword and shield. The Kevis soldier also has a unique ability in battle, where his stats increase when at low HP, so he's great at taking on strong enemies. While knowing Noah for a while, he unfortunately encountered a lot of suffering, from how his colony is suffering from food shortages to the potential deaths of his friends and loved ones that continue to grieve his mind. Poor guy. While also bearing Kevis technology all over his armor, his shield possesses a very peculiar crest. Not only is there an Ouroboros symbol on it, but it reminds me a bit of a symbol on top of Melia's mask a bit, or it can just be related to Hyantia in general because of the wing pattern on it. There's really not much to say about the cutscene he gets introduced in, besides him doing a blade beam and pulling off a Jin stun swallow before attacking the party. But it's assumed like Valdi, he realizes the party isn't an enemy, and joins up with the group soon afterwards. Overall, knowing some of Xion's backstory really helps his character, and I hope we get to see more of him in his tiny Hyantia wings. And the last character is that green-haired Gormani character that we wish we got the name of in the release date trailer, and that name is... Yuzuriha? Nah, just kidding. It's Juniper. Okay, I know I've mentioned it on Twitter before, but I just don't like her Japanese name. And apparently, some people seem to really gravitate towards that name for some strange reason. But I think Juniper fits her style very well. Since her name comes from a famous Welsh tree, and Gormani have a Welsh accent, so the name fits her so much better than Yuzawata. I'm not trying to sound mean to the people who prefer it, although I just don't get why that is. Anyways, back to Juniper herself. Her class is a stalker in the attacker category. Her main skill is to approach enemy blind spots with her bow, and deliver powerful blows on top of that. She is stealthy and agile when she approaches her foes as well. Even though we don't know if she's a soldier, Juniper aligns with Agnes, but chooses to live peacefully in MAKE the Wildwood. But she is well trusted by the members in what apparently is an Agnes colony we didn't know about in MAKE the Wildwood. The cutscene she appears in showing her grinding on the metal ropes, which shows that this is the hero you need to learn rail grinding to progress through MAKE the Wildwood. The arrow she shoots out reminds me so much of Mithra's sacred arrow for some reason, but it can be a bit of a coincidence. Also, I find Muni's reaction after the arrow blows up on the ground to be pretty hilarious. Here, I'll play it for you again. And again. And again. Juniper is an awesome hero so far, and I can't wait to see more of her like the rest of the heroes, as she seems to be popular already with a lot of people, but I think it has to do with her cat ears. Anyways, Juniper cute. Now it's time to get into the new heroes we get to learn about from in the Direct. I'll go through them one by one. First up is Ashura from Kevis, a hero who uses a weapon called the Lone Exile, a twin sword defender class weapon. She is an aggressive defender that deals swift and deadly slashes which draws foes in, only to mow them down one at a time. Next up is Alexandra from Agnes. She uses an attack weapon called an Incursor. The Incursor's main focus is to deal a lot of critical hits, which boosts her attack power upon landing them. A very strong class for sure. Then we have Fiona from Agnes, who appears to be a new type of race that we haven't seen yet from Xenoblade because of those horns on her head. She was actually shown off in a blurred image in Volume 4's banner. But we get to officially see what she does in battle. She uses a javelin and is part of the healer class, and I feel that she's going to play a supportive role more than anything. We really don't know much about her from the Direct, but I'm sure we'll get to know more about what she's capable of when Xenoblade 3 comes. Our next hero is Gray from Kevis. He looks very Xenoblade X-ish when I saw him in the Direct, and that connection continues in the weapon he uses, a full metal jaguar from the attacker class. The Xenoblade X comparisons continue even in the Direct. His main abilities are to attack foes in a wide area with twin guns, which each shot growing stronger with each hit. Because of the class's very high dexterity, it would be pretty easy to land hits, so he might be another broken hero for this game for sure. There are more heroes shown off during the Direct, but we have yet to know what their names are, or what they're capable of in battle, which is honestly very nice, because we got a small handful of heroes, and the Direct expects us to discover the rest on our own, which I very much enjoy. There's also a menu specifically for heroes when you try to check their rank, the letters showing how good they are with each category, as well as their description, title, and what their weapon is called. As mentioned earlier in the gameplay section, there's also a menu to change on the main 6 into one of the hero classes all to increase their rank. There's actually quite a bit more to this menu. First off is, we get to see the chibis again! This was clearly not a marketing tactic! And then on the right, we can see what the character's rank for the class is, a description, and the master arts and skills you get while mastering the class. You can also change the outfits of the main characters to their respective class as well, and just not from the main 6. Now, let's get into the story that was shown off in a new teaser trailer that was shown in the first 4 minutes of the Direct, as well as some things during the main Direct that I also felt were some late game spoilers, but were only there for a little while. Again, if you are very finicky about spoilers, I suggest you skip this section and go to the timestamp listed on the screen right now. Also, I'm going to make a pretty special counter here, just for the Xenogears references shown off during this section. Are you ready, everyone? Okay, let's go. Let's start with the teaser trailer. For one, we finally got confirmation of what the tattoos are all about, which represents the lifespans of the soldiers on the battlefield, called terms, which begin at the first term and end at the 10th term. The tattoo or mark is given to them right before they become a soldier, all to fill their respective nation's flame clock, which are absorbed by the Pharaonises, the Iron Giants that we knew from the very beginning, to grow more stronger and powerful to overwhelm their enemy nation. What a sad way for these soldiers to die. Their ether energy basically turns into particles, which get absorbed by the enemy's strongest artillery. However, if they want to continue living past their 10th term, they need to fulfill an honor on the battlefield. The queen of their respective nation gives these honorable soldiers more life because of this. However, Aufseers are excruciatingly important, as when they play their flutes, the white particles that come from the deceased don't get absorbed by either side, but get sent out into the air, until the fog beasts come in and absorb the particles anyway. That's what I'm hoping that would happen though. We have yet to see a slight hint at fog beasts, or some kind of Agni body character yet. Please let me be right in my theories, please Xenoblade 3 gods, until I see red particles coming out of the machines that we cut open, and then my hopes are clearly diminishing ever more now. We get a good look at Mio's tattoo on the side of her neck, which shows that the red is pretty much gone like many of us expected. But not many of us know that she has a mere 3 months to live, right upon her 10th term. But also see a shot of what looks to be someone inside of a glass case. I don't know about you guys, but this brings back flashbacks to the Kodamni system from Xenogears, which was where the first Elheim was born. We have some more unnamed Kevis characters. One of them looks like a kid who just started his first term, and the other a Kevis commander by the looks of it. And finally, we get to see what the true main villains of this game are pulling the strings of each side of the war. And they are called the Consul, and they pretty much oversee duties of both nations with their members, all dressed up in these metallic red costumes, sort of like they're alien to this world. The lackeys, as I'm going to call them, are more involved in trying to rise in the ranks to take over control of their respective nation. They are also capable of mind control, as we see from an infinity symbol show within one of the Consul commander's left eye. When they are battling the main party, they transform into the creatures called Mobius. Some have different headpieces compared to the others too. Their leader, who is what Wild Ride appears to transform into, is named D. Get it? Because his name has 2 D's in it? Stupid jokes aside, the graph similarities really start to appear when you see him fold his arms in a silhouette. And then we have this mysterious character with long hair, and what appears to have ether coming out of his face. He seems to have control over their console, and is the decision maker over all of them. And then we have this mysterious character with a mask, who also seems to use mind control powers with the Mobius strip symbol. I don't know about you, but his voice and his hair is very similar to Noah. I'm not sure if this is a fate situation, but if it happens that Noah turns out to have multiple personalities here, that would be pretty mind-blowing for sure. Also, to add to more Xenogears references up the wazoo, the console totally represents the Giselle Ministry, with the guy with the blue ether over his face representing Krellian, and the whole thing about controlling every single thing in both nations is totally what Solaris is. I'm just gonna say it right now, but Xenoblade 3 is starting to turn more into a Xenogears spiritual successor if you ask me. Anyways, let's go over some things that I kind of think is found in late game, that I feel is more appropriate putting them in the spoiler section more than anything. The hero menu has a blurred out image of a character. My guess of what this character could be is one of the commanders of Kevis or Agnes, And Nintendo purposely did this not to spoil people on knowing that a Kevis or Agnes Commander is going to be a hero at one point. And it's sort of confirmed in the class menu, which clearly shows silhouettes of Kamaravi, as well as what it looks to be Wild Ride for some reason? I have no idea how him of all things is supposed to join you, although maybe it could be just a furry creature that kind of looks like Wild Ride. There's also an area that can be found way late in the game for a good reason, and it's called the Agnes Castle Barbican. Yup, we get to explore both the Agnes and the Kevis castles. The location that is found here is called Levnis Workyard. Levnis comes from the Ottoman court painter called Abdul Chalil Levni, which is very interesting considering the fact Xenoblade 2's world has all kinds of Greek references. And the very ground where Agnes is built on has a name that comes from the Ottomans, the kingdom that has ruled over Greece for centuries. As well as we see in front of us is an Agnes artillery unit unique monster called Obliterated Centurio at level 91, which obviously is another Centaur reference. Alright, I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover. We are almost to an hour of this video left. Have I forgotten anything? Oh no. Oh no! Anyways, everyone, we have finally made it. We are done with the monthly updates. It's been a bit of a fun one, but with Xenoblade 3 coming out at the end of next month, it's really going to be hard to make news without spoiling a whole section of the game. Plus, there's much more important things I want to take care of anyways. Like my Xenoblade content, check out my other videos. I also hope to make some Xenoblade 3 content a few more months after release, but don't expect there to be a whole month's worth of videos, as I do want to focus on other projects. Also, I'll make an update video for all of you to see coming on the 4th of July, and I think you all should see it too. And with that, I think I'll end the monthly update series here. Until next time, everyone, see you on the other side!